the comment section is saying that I might have ruined the Cavs home record, that I am responsible for these 2 losses.
Yeah, it feels like it's on you. I mean, if we're looking at exactly what you said and what happened in the last week, I don't know. It's like the evidence is there. So, what do you have to say for yourself? I don't know.
Look, I have the utmost faith in Donovan Mitchell. I was excited about Donovan Mitchell, and I just merely pointed out that he had never lost a game at Rocket Mortgage in like the last calendar year. And I had pretty much assumed that after we beat the Bucks,
Yeah.
that was locked. Just locked. We was going to not have to worry about it. Well, it's December 29th, 2022. And the Cavs took 2 straight losses. 2 straight losses. 2 of them.
We should have known with the Raptors being that first one there that like they just give us hell every time. We really struggle against them. They're so much more physical than us. So we should have known it was coming, but for some reason just thought it would be different this time.
They taking out their anger on the whole LeBron era on us right now.
Yes,
And
the LeBron show era.
I don't appreciate it. And if they beat us like this again, we gonna have to call LeBron to make sure that this gets handled, right? He's not
Yeah.
doing nothing down there in LA. They're not gonna like make the playoffs. He already said he wants to win. We might
Yeah, the
have to call
quotes coming
LeBron.
out from LeBron
Yeah.
are interesting. I'm like, I know where you can go, LeBron, if you wanna start winning some games again. I've got a place for you.
Hey man, we need a wing. You know what I mean? Like we need a wing. He can be that guy. You know what I mean? But it has, all jokes aside, it has been a somber week for Cavs fans. Even though, like in the grand scheme of things, they've lost like 2 out their last 9 or something crazy like that. They're still at like 22 wins. You kind of got to look at things in perspective and with expectation in mind. I think that's one of the things I actually want to hit on here is, what really are the expectations for this Cavs team, right? Because I think there is this, like when we say, hey, this team's good and we're excited about it, I think there is this assumption by some that only teams that can credibly win a championship in that given year are teams that are worthy of being deemed good. I don't operate on that description of it, but where are you at with like what should the expectations for this team are, and what were they before the season, and where are they at now that we're past Christmas Day?
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of with you on the fact that I don't operate under the assumption that it's only interesting if you are a real contender. I wouldn't say we are a championship contender at this moment, but I mean, it's not fun to be a sports fan if that's all you're relying on is winning championships. Like you're going to have a miserable existence. So I suggest enjoying the ride throughout it as well. I think expectations for me personally are still similar to where they were coming into the season, and that I'd like to win a playoff series, and I think we should win a playoff series. Beyond that, it's hard for me to say because I think it's really based on matchups and who we are going to match up with in the playoffs. Because there are certain teams that I think we maybe have a better record, but we match up really well with them. So I wouldn't be as upset as a team with a lesser record, but we don't match up very well with them. And I'd be more hesitant in that way. Like right now, when we're playing that game that we played against the Nets, it just like scares me to play them when Katie and Kyrie are on fire. And I feel like they can give us some trouble. Now, I don't know if there's longevity to that because you just look at that team and you wonder if someone gets hurt between Ben Simmons, Kyrie, and KD, like, I don't know. That's a team that's like always waiting to implode at any point. Toronto is like a weird team where they're not even a playoff team right now, but they just give us so much trouble. So I think it's very matchup based. But my expectations are still definitely win a playoff series, regardless of what that first matchup is. I think we should have home court advantage and be able to take a series.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Like there's no saying most teams are happy with like a playoff series win and getting to 6 games in the second round. Like you get to a nice 6-game competitive series, you're pretty happy with that. You don't want to get swept at any point. Like even if you get like to the Eastern, like even when the Cavs like got to the finals too early, it kind of made the season feel like a failure because they got swept. Right? They got to like 5 games, you feeling good about it, right? With the first finals against the Warrior, the KD Warriors, you went to 5. Yeah. That second one would have felt much better if you would have went to 5. But was that a sweep or was that 5?
I think that was 5. Yeah,
that was 5. Oh, they could have went to 6.
I don't think they swept I think they swept us, if I'm remembering correctly. I feel like I'd remember
But
that.
just think about how much differently we would look at that LeBronto run if he had took the KD Warriors, the peak of their power Warriors, to 6 games by himself. We talk about the 2015 one like he won it, like because he
Yeah.
went to 6 games by himself. Like for whatever reason, getting to a game 6, that means
Mhm.
you did something. You
You're
were a
competitive.
capable team. That's like losing in a field goal game in the
Yeah.
second round of a playoff, like in the football, right? Like that's the same equivalent to that. It's like, hey, you didn't get to a game 7. You're a young team. You're learning how to play in the playoffs, and maybe next year you'll go further. And that's kind of where I'm at with them. Like if they go up against Milwaukee, I don't think they get to pass Milwaukee, right? Milwaukee's too experienced. They're too good. They're former champions. Giannis, literally the best player in the world right now. And Chris Middleton will be back, and that's a team that you don't want them problems with, right? Boston, I think that's a little bit more of an interesting matchup for them
Mhm.
because while Boston does have that experience, they don't have that same killer instinct I think Milwaukee does. And for whatever reason, we've been able to beat Boston.
Yeah.
So maybe that continues, right? But we have the size too there. And I don't think Robert Williams is coming back anytime soon for them, right? He's not coming back this year. So, that's also an advantage, right? Because I think the big problem, and we could talk about this with Toronto, and, they got over this with Milwaukee. I've been saying this for a while. I'm going to continue to say this. This is going to be the Quincy says this every podcast take. The teams that give the Cavs trouble are the teams that can move them on the interior, and then the ones with guys like KD, right? Like there are
Guys
two
like it.
teams. Yeah, there are two teams that can give them trouble, and those are the two, right? It was interesting. They had more problems beating Dallas when Luka was out than when Luka was in
Mhm.
because they were a more physical team with Luka out, right? Same thing happens with Toronto, right? Like you look at the teams and the games where they've had disappointing efforts. It's been like they lost to Minnesota. That's a big physical team. Anthony
Mhm.
Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Carl Anthony Towns. I don't think he played right in that game. I wouldn't call Carl Anthony Towns physical, but he is big, right? Like so yeah, they do have a physical core up there. Outsands Carl Anthony Towns, and he's still a good player in his own right. Good perimeter 3-point shooter and good offensive player, but those are the teams that give him problems because Jared Allen, he's a good defensive center. He's a really, really good defensive center. He's not a giant offensive center, right? I think we saw this when he was in Brooklyn. They played Joel Embiid in the first round. And I remember one of the takeaways being, I forget, it was like Jalen Rose or Ben Simmons. It was one of the old Grantland guys. That their takeaway was, Jared Allen's just not big enough to do anything with Joel Embiid, right? Like he's playing him well. He's just smaller, right? He's a 6'9" center. Joel
Yeah.
Embiid's a big boy. He's at like 7 foot, and he's huge. He's massive. He's like almost 300 pounds. Those are the guys that give you problems. Evan Mobley, like he's just not there yet physically. Hopefully he can get there. But that's been one of the things where it's like, yeah, you need the extra weight there. And with Lamar Stevens, I think he was still out, right, against the Raptors. I don't know if he played. Did he play against the
He
Nets?
did play against the Nets. Yeah, he was out against the Raptors, played against the Nets. Because they
Yeah,
put him
so
back in the starting lineup, which was kind of confusing too, because I feel like Isaac has been good. I don't know. I feel like they're still confused on what they're doing there.
yeah, I would say that you probably would want to put him in the starting lineup against Brooklyn just because of the
I
wing
think that's
size
why.
and
Yeah,
Kevin
the
Durant,
size,
right? Yeah,
the
so you don't
physical.
because
Yep.
Isaac ain't even getting that hand to Kevin Durant face. Like I
No.
like Isaac, but that's just not happening.
Yeah,
So
most people have a hard time with Kevin Durant, I would say. He's a tough one to guard.
yeah, I mean, like maybe you could fit a way to get him. Well, no, not with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley healthy. You're not going to take one of them out to put in him, so you could switch to pick and roll and have somebody go on Kyrie because Isaac would be good for Kyrie, but he wouldn't be good. There's a whole
Yeah,
mix of problems there
it's a
that
mess.
the Brooklyn Nets give you. Why you do not want to play the Brooklyn Nets in the first round? I'm glad they're getting their stuff together now because like they are always the play-in team from hell, right? But that is an interesting thing to look at when you look at like the teams that get the Cavs problems and the teams that have struggled against. What have you noticed with this team as far as soft spots for them? And I think every team has them. It's important to recognize them So, it's important for expectations, right? Because, if we go into a series with Milwaukee, there's reasons why we would be very ecstatic to get to 6 or 7 games with them versus
Yeah.
expecting to get out of that series.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of why I said like the matchups are going to be so important, because it's like we just don't want to play those teams that have the ability to really out physical us. And I feel like I'm, beating this point over and over, but it's still just that wing thing that is our soft spot and is continues to create issues. And I think the reason it's creating issues is because teams know that that is our really our only weakness at this point, other than like some of the physical things and other positions. They know to exploit that. And if the guy isn't hitting that day, whether it's Isaac, whether it's Lamar, or when Dean Wade's healthy, they're going to attack you and try to exploit you there. So I still don't know if it's like a trade. I think they might be active at the trade deadline, and try to do something there. It doesn't have to be a starting caliber player, but just another weapon to have that you can at least try to throw out there, because I do think it's continuing to create problems, especially when teams are just so aware of it now. They're like, oh yeah, that's where we need to really hit the Cavs where it hurts, and they do it.
I have 2 suggestions for trades. One that makes sense, another one that is going to sound insane.
The comment section's going to love that.
Okay. So I think Jay Crowder makes a lot of sense, right? He's 32, so it would only be like a 1-year kind of fix, as you wait to find out something more. I think if you could find something younger, that could be a more core piece to this team going forward, you would love to. But I think right now you're just like, hey, I want to make sure that this team has the best chance in the playoffs that they can have possible without mortgaging the future. I think Jay Crowder makes a ton of sense there. Here's the insane one.
I'm nervous.
PJ Tucker.
I was not expecting that. Okay.
This is why I said it was insane. Okay. PJ Tucker.
Explain yourself.
he's 6'5", right? So he has the size for to play 3. He's not really played much 3 in his career. He's been an undersized center power forward most of his career. 245 pounds. He gives you the toughness. He has been a terrible shooter this year. So I'm betting on progression to the mean. That if you trade for him midseason, he actually shoots better than you expect because he's been under his career average so far. Now, he is 37. This is another 1-year rental. But this is a guy who's going to bring quality veteran depth. This is a guy who's going to bring more physicality than anybody else can in the league, right? You're not going to get out physicaled much by teams when you have PJ Tucker. And the Cavs have experience in this defensive system running with 3 bigs that are used to playing power forward, but you can swap them all out there on the wing, right? Like we did this with Larry Marketing, who is playing power forward pretty much exclusively in Chicago. You can do this with PJ Tucker, who's actually played some small forward in the NBA. And I think he can shoot. He'll shoot reliably enough. He is not going to be a shutdown perimeter defender, but he's not going to be an embarrassing defender on the perimeter. And I think he helps with some of your switches and some of your defensive problems. He's not going to save you offensively. He might be just as bad as Isaac Okoro offensively, but he has length, longer arms than Isaac, and he has a noted history of being that guy the last, 3-4 years of his career, even at his advanced age. I think he's a terrible fit on the 76ers. I think he's obtainable to get from them because he's not on like a giant deal or anything like that, and he is 37, and he just doesn't fit, right, what they want him to do over there. But I think he can fit over here. It's a little bit unorthodox. Nobody's talking about it. Might be for a very good reason, right? But I think PJ Tucker, like if I was willing to bet on one like a wild, what do you call it? A long shot for who the Cavs come in, I would not be surprised if PJ Tucker gets traded for, and I'm the only one on Twitter like, hey, I know this makes sense somewhat, though. Like, everybody else will be scratching their head. I will be the one guy like, no, I think this might actually be brilliant. Like,
right.
Because there are trades like that every trade deadline. I think that PJ Tucker could work for that spot. What do you think? Do you think I'm insane?
I don't think you're insane. I think what does make sense is like it is such a fit thing, you know? Like there's so many guys that are on teams right now where maybe they're underperforming because they're just not a good fit for where they're at. So I think like it could work from that perspective. Another guy I was thinking about more, I thought about this more in the preseason before this season started. I'm like still kind of into it, but he has been shooting a little bit worse this season than previous seasons. But Josh Richardson from San Antonio, I feel like he on at his best is a good shooter, and I feel like I would just like to have a guy that can contribute from 3 point. So he's someone I was like more interested in before. He's kind of had a bad year, but at the same time, it's sort of the same thing where I'm like, maybe he's just on a really bad team right now and needs to be somewhere in a bit of a better place. So that's one I would maybe be interested in, but yeah, you really threw me off with the PJ Tucker one. I don't think I've heard a single person suggest that as of yet. But I mean, if it happens and he goes off, like you have bragging rights forever on that, just for being the only person to say it.
Look, sometimes I have these thoughts and they're brilliant, and sometimes I have these thoughts and they're dumb. I
You
don't know
never.
which one this falls into yet. I kind of got to see it to happen, but I'm willing. I would bet a protected second round pick on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would bet a protected second rounder on it where I'm like, I feel like that could work. I do. I think that
Yeah,
could be like, remember when Rondo was here and it kind of worked for like a couple months?
yeah,
You know, I feel like that could happen with PJ Tucker, but like a little bit longer. You know what I mean? By the way,
yeah.
why didn't we bring Rondo back? Like, what happened with that? I felt like that worked.
Maybe I don't know if it was because of bringing Ricky back, where they were like, it's kind
Mm.
of filling the same like veteran facilitator role. Like I think they liked Rondo a lot because he's always injured though too. So I feel like maybe
Yeah, he ain't coming in to play Raul Neto minutes too. Like he has his ego of his own too. So it's like, yeah, playoff Rondo. It's a thing. Yeah, Rondo's hit the 2K My Career player a portion of his career where he's just on a random team. I mean, like I don't even think he's on a team anymore, right? Like he's out the league now, so he'll sign somewhere though by like in a couple months. Uh, you know what I mean? So we talked about the trade. Oh, let's talk about Darius Garland going off for 46. I mean, 14 of 20 from the field, 13 of 15. Ooh, ooh. Boy, Donovan could have got his patented 30. We would have won by like 10. You know what I mean? It just didn't work out that way that day. Mm-hmm. And then Donovan Mitchell was out too during that same time. So it was literally like, oh, we literally just won 8 games in a row. When you were out, you come back, Donovan goes out, and we lose 5 games, you know? Yeah, and I'm looking at the high scores from last year. And one of the things I think is interesting is I think I counted 8 or 9 games. This is rough math, so forgive me if I'm wrong, comment section. But 8 or 9 games this year where they've had a high score over 40, I mean over 35 points, right? Once you get past 35, it's like, oh, that's a game, right? That's a hot game. Last year, I think there were two. There is a Ricky Rubio game where he apparently went off for a bunch of points, and then yeah, there was a Ricky Rubio. Let me double check that, but I know there's a Darius Garland 41 bomb in there, and then there is I think early in the season I think Ricky Rubio went off for for a bunch of points there. I think he went off for at least above 35. Somebody can double check that. Yeah, 37 37 November 7th versus the New York Knicks in the Garden. So, you know, yeah. Yeah. So 2 games last year where we had a high score above 35. Now we're at like 9 or 10. So the nature of how we get points and the ability to get points at will, right? When you're talking about having individuals, right, getting to that point. I think 3 of them with obviously it's Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and I think Karis LeVert 41 points versus yeah. So and then did I think no. Jared Allen didn't get above 35 against the Lakers that night. So he was on pace too, but he never did. So, I mean, those two players alone. Darius Garland has had more 41-point games this half of the season than he has had all year last year. I just think when you're watching Donovan go off for 30 on a pretty routine basis, it does make you feel like, oh, going off for 30 is easy. Why is Darius missing all of these shots? And it's not that Darius is missing all of these shots. It's that Donovan makes a lot more of his shots, right? And it kind of makes you just kind of like look at Darius Garland different, but that's why he's not, the main guy here, right? That's why he is the second guy who's very important, but it's like with it took Kyrie to get to such a high level for him to be appreciated next to LeBron. And I mean, he pretty much was like almost an MVP level that year they won the championship. So it's not going to be like that. And even then, you're talking about two like as far as basketball is concerned, like 2 Hall of Famers there, right? Like with Kyrie and LeBron. Like I don't know if Darius is I don't even know if Donovan Mitchell's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think our expectations kind of get wrapped up into what we've seen before, what we want them to be, and you can get 46 from Darius one night and 36 against Milwaukee from Mitchell in the previous night. I mean, you're talking about in a span of 3 games, you're matching your highest point totals from all of last season. What this Cavs team has changed. Now let's talk about the schedule going forward. I think there are some interesting games coming up here. You play Indiana. You had that well, not the back-to-back, but 2 games and 3 nights with Chicago. So a little mini playoff series, a little baseball series, I guess you could call it. And then you go and you play Phoenix, Denver, Phoenix, and then a sneaky important game here at Utah. Donovan Mitchell's first time back at Utah in the new year. So what are you thinking about going into this stretch, seeing that they just got out of this homestand 4-2, which is what you wanted going into it? What do you want out of these next set of games? Mm-hmm. I think Darius should. I don't know if he gets. Well, I don't. Is it like you vote the start? Am I just being an old person? But I think you just vote the starters in, right? Okay, so Donovan should start. I think Donovan should start. And then I think yeah, Darius should make it. I think Jarrett's been hurt too often this year, right? So yeah, I don't think he's going to get in. Especially he's already kind of a fringe player, like at center. You kind of have to just be the best center in the NBA, and like people have to be. You really only get one All Star game like that. You know what I mean? Where people finally want to appreciate you. So like, here's Jarrett Allen. He's been so underappreciated, and then let's give him his flowers. And then he never. Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? It's the same reason like Michael Conley finally got into the All Star game too. It's like, all right, let's just give him one. You usually only get one of those. Ah, man, if see Evan had a stretch where I'm like, if he continues like this, he will make the All Star game. He fell off a bit, like so. I don't think he makes it either. I think he's probably a year away. So I think it's probably just going to be DG and Donovan Mitchell, which is crazy to say because they're so much better than last year, but they're not going to have the same amount of All Stars. But in theory, they have the same amount of All Stars because they really got well, they got two last year, right? Yeah, they got yeah. But the two that you get this year, I think, are going to be two that are going to be like voted like in the All Star game. You know what I mean? Like undoubtedly in the All Star game, and then maybe you could sneak one in. But I think the guy you probably sneak in is Mobley, and I think they're. I don't think he's there where it would even feel like he's an All Star at this point. So yeah, that's what I would say. I would say it's probably just DM and DG. By the way, last thing I'm looking at, I was looking at the high scores from like 2016, 17. There's just a different level of player LeBron was at that time, man. Because like you're just watching, you're just going through this. Yeah, you're going through this, and of course LeBron has a lot of high points, but he's also like the assist leader in literally every game. Into like it's him and then Kyrie Irving maybe two times, like, and then like he's also getting rebound lead. Like there are like several games where LeBron James led the team in points, rebounds, and assists, and we just used to look at that like it wasn't anything special. Like we would just be like, oh yeah, LeBron, what he got 35, 12, and 10. Okay, you know what I mean? All right, yeah, yeah. It's just we will not ever put in perspective the ideal of like a really good player because they're every time they're like close, like a top five player in the NBA, we're just that poor bastard, whoever that is, the next guy to be like a top five guy, it's just going to be relentlessly compared to LeBron, and I feel sorry for that guy. No, yeah, just pass, shot, rebound. Like it's the I remember like triple doubles used to be like normal, and they were like gigantic triple doubles too. Where it's like, yeah, you gotta get. I still to this day have a problem like recognizing like 40 points. That's a special occasion. You know what I mean? Like, it's the weirdest thing to me is like, oh yeah, LeBron, the 41-point game, like what an offensive showcase. I'm like, I've seen him get 50. Like, and it felt like it wasn't much work. Like every time LeBron is an exercise in watching him because like you feel like every night, if he really wanted to, he could get 40 points. He just like chooses to do other things that make the team better. And then like now I'm starting to grow an appreciation for it because like, you know, when Donovan Mitchell gets 38, it looks really good. When Darius Garland gets 46, oh, you notice it because you're like, man, everything is dropping because you notice like it doesn't happen like that for everybody else. Oh, Zion about to put up them Kevin Love numbers we used to see in like Minnesota where we like, that's real. Like did Kevin Love like have like a 50-20 game or something like that? Like he had like 50 point. Like Kevin Love used to get a ridiculous amount of rebounds. Like I remember that when I was just like Kevin Love, he's the guy in Minnesota that gets like 40 rebounds in a game or something like that. Like not see that's gonna be interesting too because I don't think the core Cavs audience even remembers that Kevin Love, right? Like Tubby Kevin Love in Minnesota. Yeah. Where he used to get like a million rebounds. He was just like rebound champ every year, never would leave his feet. Yeah. Now, like if Kevin Love gets 8 rebounds, you're like, man, he was hustling today. Kevin Love used to get like 20 a night almost. Like it was like something crazy. But it is interesting because like unlike the Browns, when Cavs fans have a lot of great players to kind of reference off of, and it's honestly like the exact opposite, right? Where every player lives in the shadow of mediocrity in Cleveland. So like, you know, if somebody just is decent or achieves something relatively above average, we are going to act like that is the greatest thing to ever happen in Cleveland Browns history because it quite literally is. But with the Cavs, it's like it's the exact opposite where it's like we have seen the second greatest player, undisputably, you can argue the greatest player of all time, in this building for so many years, and he did some of his greatest stuff here, right? Like a lot of the storybook LeBron moments are him in a Cavs uniform, you know, so it's like, you know, it's hard to be the next guy, right? Like, and I wonder what that's going to be for Donovan Mitchell going forward, right? Is like, you know, he is going to be the guy that all of his accomplishments are going to be seen as he's the first guy to do this. That is not LeBron James. You know what I mean? It's like if you get left and it's like for that person, like you know what I mean, like her, like you know what I mean, like that's what it felt like yo, you gonna diss us for Boston? Like I get it for like, you know, maybe you like warm weather, maybe you like the beaches, you know, Miami, okay, I can deal, I can ultimately understand that, you know what I mean, New York, I get it, bro. You gonna do us like this for Boston though? That's what I think rub people like Boston. Boston's the exact same thing as here with more annoying people. Like yeah, you know what? You make a great point because Donovan Mitchell's going to get the benefit of the doubt of everybody understanding the shadow because we just recently lived through it. But the like after, like, let's say Evan Mobley becomes the next great Cav or whatever, right? The guy who has to be the leader of the core after him is going to be like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's going to be tough, right? Like when people are willing to, because like we're not at the point yet to where people have mythologized LeBron. We're at the point to where like Bron's kind of just like, he's a really good player. He's the second grade, but like he hasn't released his docs. Like, you know, when we're 50, LeBron gonna go crazy with them documentaries. Oh yeah. And we know LeBron lie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know those documentaries are going to have some incredible stories on them, right? Like, you know, yeah, we going to find out he came back for 3-1 on a torn ACL or something like that. Like, you know, you know he going to add in the drama. Like, I can't wait for the LeBron biopics. There's going to be some ridiculousness in here. Like, no, Quavo was not even rapping yet when in 2010. Like that wasn't even a thing. Like, you know, but we know the last chance. I mean, the last dance with Bron. Like, oh yeah, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be some. And look, he got to release it at a point where he's old too. Like, you know, he can't just release it when he's 30 because people gonna be like, nah, dog, I was there. But like MJ did it right. He released it when he was like 50, 60 years old. Lies in that documentary. Nothing but lies out here. Oh, you know, I just had food poisoning. That was the flu game. Lies, I tell you, right? No truth was in that documentary. And LeBron James was taking notes, and we are going to find out, did you know LeBron James played Game 5 in the NBA Finals in 2016 blind? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we gonna find out some incredible truths when that happens, and it's gonna be hilarious. I cannot wait for that era of Bron where we gonna be willing to lie about it. You know what I mean? That's that. You can everybody gets too old to have watched them live, so like now you can get away with your lies. Like no, that is the underrated portion of somebody's lifespan is when you're far enough removed from your playing career, but still connected enough to the people watching the game that people are willing to lie. And Michael Jordan was in the right era where it's like he did some incredible stuff. But boy, did they add that mythology in there. There was nothing to check it. Like nobody could come in like, no, Mike didn't do that. Nah, it just stood the test of time. And you know what? I can't wait for LeBron to tell some myths because he's going to tell some outlandish myths. We're gonna find out he's gonna say some outlandish stuff. But that's it for this Cavs Attacq episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you follow Abby Mueller on Twitter at Abby_Mueller_. Check her out on SI. She does a SI Browns Digest if you're interested in that. She also does a podcast, this girl from Cleveland, where she covers the Buckeyes, which, by the way, they play in a couple days, so get up on that, right? The Browns, who also play this weekend, you know, with slightly less important game. And then she covers the Guardians when they do stuff, and she also covers the Cavaliers on that pod. So if you want to get it all in one, if you enjoy the 40 minutes that she gives us here every week, you will enjoy the 40 minutes that she also gives you on her podcast. Make sure you check it out. It's available where all podcasts are done. And she does not pay me to say this at the end of the video. She does not. So, you know, I am... Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, like they'll have to memorize nothing because she didn't even send me a script for this. This is all because she does great work. I want to appreciate everybody I want to appreciate her for coming on for the podcast. I also want to appreciate everybody for coming and watching. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night.